To the Seneca Heritage Day. It's our 31st. We got another beautiful day. If you look out, see Bear Hill. I think last time we were here, we had sunflowers. Now we got corn, which is it's always very fitting. Such a beautiful area. We thank the Button Farm for allowing us to use this property. It takes a lot of people to put an event like this together. Dan Robeson, the town historian, who's in scooping ice cream right now. The Middlesex Heritage Group volunteer cleanup crew, which cleaned up the schoolhouse, which sometimes when you're after about 6-8 months, the place gets a little smell to it. We were very fortunate this morning. We had the Middlesex Hose Company bring some volunteers up for the first time in 12 years I've been here. We had people put the chairs in who were under the age of 70. That was amazingly helpful. I'd like to thank the Lake to Lake events for the tent. We'd like to thank Susie for the potty. Dan Paddock and Paul Mitchell, they are audio crew. Jim Hilton's our video man. Deb Bronson is over there with the pies, and her husband Ed. We have Bonnie Olswald and Rich were here earlier today to help us set up. Elaine Hilton's over there selling items. Elaine Hilton's not over there selling items. Oh, there she is. Okay. But today we have a special. A special today. Only today. One day only. Here, right now, for you. A special tribute for you guys showing up today. If you buy a copy of Ruth Clark's History and Legends of the Town of Middlesex, or the Florence Middlebrook painting, we'll give you a 1-year free membership in the Middlesex Heritage Group, and that entitles you to do 4 quarterly newsletters, and that's it. But we use that money to support ourselves. We're a non-profit, and so if you want to join too, we meet every Wednesday morning from 9 to 11:30. You get there around 10 o'clock. We have homemade cookies and coffee. That's my favorite time. So we're an aging group, and we'd like to have some younger people. If you're in your 60s even, you're considered younger. So if you're in your 50s, we'll buy lunch for you. It's like in the town hall.
You are.
Every Wednesday morning when we're there, we catalog and record the history of the town of Middlesex. We have over 150 3-ring binders about the town. We have history files on a lot of the families in town. And next year, hopefully, or this year, later this year, we're going to get an Ancestry.com software on our computer and down in the library so individuals can research their families. We'd like to have you visit us anytime.
No, that's fine. Why don't I sit there and you sit there?
We've also established an oral history program.
Oh, well, I don't want to.
Alex Haley one time wrote Roots said, when an old person dies, it's like a library burning down. This past year we lost Lee Williams, and he was an incredible source of information locally. A wonderful storyteller, great history in his mind, and I truly believe he's related to everybody in this town except for me, because I came here late. I did find a Williams in my family tree. Lee was trying to prove it. That was part of his family. I was trying to prove it wasn't. But we missed Lee, and the sad part was we didn't record him. We were fortunate enough, Janet Reed passed away last year, and we were fortunate enough to record her on an audio. And it's the kind of history you can't buy. I mean, it's oral history. And it's about people who are living their lives, raising their family, working the land, or doing something. But knowing what happened, we have Clifford DeWitt had some movies from the 1950s, I think it was. And one quarterly meeting we played that, and everybody was there pointing out, oh, that's my Uncle Bill, and we had to stop the film periodically so everybody could identify. And being an outsider, it was such a delight for me to see people that involved and knowing people and knowing that's their story and that's their history and how we all got here. If you'd like to be part of the oral history, please come in on Wednesday morning or contact any of us volunteers here, or come in on Wednesday morning. It takes about 45 minutes. Our history program, oral history program also includes the Veterans History Project, which was sponsored by the Library of Congress. We have about 8 veterans from the town of Middlesex, and we have their recordings about their stories when they were in the military. Most of them World War II, 1 or 2 are Korea. I'd like to, thank our sponsors, the town of Middlesex, the Kennedago Lake Watershed Association, and the Mitchell Family Foundation all contribute to helping us put on this event.
Do you want to?
Now, I'd like to introduce Peter Jemison. He received his arts education from the University of Siena in Italy. He got a BS in Arts and Education from Buffalo State College, and later received their honorary Doctorate of Fine Arts. He's a member of the Seneca Nation, Heron Clan, and his work, he does painting, he does everything. And he's a fabulous dancer, but he also writes, gives lectures, and is a fabulous teacher, as you'll find out today. He's been coming here since 1988, I believe. And during that time frame, he has taught us about the 7th generation principle, our relationship and our responsibility with our natural environment, how the Iroquois Confederacy was used as a model for our U.S. Constitution, how the Iroquois women influenced our early suffrage movement, and about the Iroquois creation story. He taught us about the education system and their storytelling and oral history, and he also helped us with understanding their sacred dances. Peter's a leader. He was at Galangdigan from 1985 until this year, I believe. Is that correct, Peter? And he had a vision that he wanted to have a art and cultural center. And it took him probably 2 decades to get it done, but he did. And that was 2015. And it's just a fabulous structure. And when he opened it, and I like to use Peter's quotes, he said, "When you're a native person, your story is often told by other people. Here, we tell our own story." The primary purpose of the Seneca Heritage Day is to have Peter come down here, hear and learn in his own words how the Seneca Nation has influenced our community, our state, and our nation. I present you Peter Jemison.
So the title of my presentation is Who Owns the Past? And I'll explain why I chose that title and what it means to me. So in 1990, there was a federal law passed. It's called the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. For short, it's called NAGPRA. And that law allowed us, Onwe, the Haudenosaunee people, to request back from museums such things as our ancestors' remains, our human remains, our sacred objects that had been collected. One of the other items we were allowed to be able to repatriate was cultural patrimony. And for us that means wampum. And then eventually it was also including the funerary objects. Objects that were buried with our ancestors and were excavated by archaeologists, amateur and professional, and hauled off to museums. And first it was the ones that were associated, and later the unassociated funerary objects that were found maybe near where there was a site, a known site. And the Smithsonian passed a similar law to the one that is the federal law, NAGPRA. And so we were able to also make requests from the Smithsonian Institution for things that they had collected. And in the process of doing that, we had to identify why we feel that these things belong to us. How can we prove that they're Onondawaga in our language? The word Seneca has no meaning, so Onondawaga meaning the people of the Great Hill. And here's the Great Hill is right over here. So we had to establish that we had a direct connection to these particular things in order to be able to repatriate them. And in the course of doing that, I would encounter various opinions about how these things were made, or I might encounter opinions about, what we were doing and where we were living at any given time. And so what I quickly established this way of thinking, and that is that there's three ways of knowing. And one of the ways of knowing is our oral tradition. Those things that have been passed on generation after generation to our people. And some of it is never recorded. It's not put into books, Or if it is, it's in part. It's not in whole. So the oral tradition is an important source of information. The other way of knowing is the European visitors. When they came among our people, they created maps, they created diaries, they created records, that they wrote. Some of them were accurate, some of them were off because they didn't speak our language, so there were inaccuracies or there were things that they assumed because of what they saw. So, we just take that it's not 100%, but there's information there. Sometimes the maps are very valuable. And then finally there's archaeology. What is left in the ground after 300 years, or 500 years, or 400 years? What do we find in the ground that tells us what our people were doing at that time, what they were making, or what we were trading for, and what has survived after all that time in the ground? And that gives us a glimpse, again, of our lifestyle and what people were doing. And so those are the three ways of knowing. And we use that in interpreting Ganondagan. We use those three ways of knowing. Now, it also kind of became something I was aware of, that a lot of the way our story is told in terms of war. What war was taking place at any given time, and how were we either involved in that war, or how were we the victims of that war, or whatever it might be. So that's one way of telling story, is to tell a story of wars and whose alliances there were and all of that. But that's not the whole story. That's a story, if you will, when you use war as a way of explaining things. So the other day I had a good friend visiting, and we were having a long conversation. And so I wanted to share just a kind of a glimpse of that with you, so that you understand. And I'm gonna say some things, and I'm not intending to insult anyone. I speak frankly, and remember, none of you were alive at the time that I'm telling you about. This all happened before you. So we had people come, whether they were people from the church or people from the idea of education, historians, and they always wanted to help us to be a better person, I guess you could say, right? That was their idea. And believing that we didn't have values that they thought they had, so that they had to impart their values to us in order for us to, better survive, or whatever it might be. So I'm here to tell you that none of that's true, okay? Because we had values, we had teachings. And so one of the very first teachings that we received was this teaching to be respectful of the natural world and all the gifts that come from it. And Wint mentioned that very briefly. And we call that in our language Ganonia. It's Nandawaka in our language. We call it Ganonia. It really means giving thanks. And it is it's kind of guided by the idea of what is it that is here that has been provided by our Creator to the human beings, to all living things, in order for us to survive here. And so when we give thanks, we acknowledge the people and the well-being of the people. We acknowledge the earth, our mother, that supports our feet all the days of our life. We acknowledge the waters, all the different types of water that exist, including this beautiful Canandaigua Lake. We acknowledge the medicine plants that grow very close to the earth that are here to interrupt small illnesses. We acknowledge the plants that have to be assisted by us when we put seeds in the ground, like the corn here. We acknowledge them. We acknowledge the four-leggeds that are running around, both the small ones and the large ones, because they have been a source of food to us. The white-tailed deer was given to us as a food. That's really what the Creator intended for us. And then, of course, there are bears and there are bison and there are many other large animals that have been a source of food to different people on this Turtle Island. And then we acknowledge the birds, their songs and their beauty by their colors and all of that. We acknowledge them, but there also have been birds that supplied us with food. The turkey, the wild turkey, just one example. And then we go on to acknowledge that there are trees, all different types of trees, and every single one of them has a gift of some sort, whether it's for us or whether it's for other living things. We acknowledge them, and one of them has already happened, and that is the sap from the sugar maple cane, and we gathered that. Then we acknowledge that this warm and gentle breeze that we're feeling on our face today is a blessing. But we know the power of wind, and we know how destructive it can be. And the winds come from the four directions, but you and I depend upon it. It gives us a fresh breath of air. So we acknowledge that. And then we acknowledge the thunder beings, because they announce that water's coming in the form of rain. So we give thanks for that. And then we acknowledge that the elder brother, the sun, has arisen today and give us daytime light so we can see it as we walk around. And then we acknowledge our grandmother, the moon, who controls so many things on this earth, including the tides, but gives women a cycle by which they can bring forth life into this world. And we acknowledge the stars arranged about her. And then we acknowledge these different teachers that have come to us. But I'm getting ahead of my story, so I'm just going to leave it right there at that. And what I'm going to say is that all of this is the work of our Creator in our way of thinking, okay? And we call this unknown, right? So we're given this first teaching, and then being human beings, we're bound to forget things, and we're bound to stop remembering that that's what we're really supposed to do when we get up in the morning. When we gather together, we stop doing that, and as we continue to forget what to do, one of our messengers noticed this was happening, and so he came to us, and he wanted to reinforce that message that had been given to us about being thankful, and then he wanted to add another message to us. In the very beginning, we did not know what death was. We didn't know that people were going to die, and so, but when they did, we had to figure out what to do about that. And so there was a young man who was of good mind, and he stepped forward and he made a suggestion. And he said that we should go down by the river. And so we went on down by the river, and he had one family cut a grapevine. And he said, swing over to the other side of the river, and whatever bird or animal you see over there, that'll be a totem, your symbol. So learn everything you can about that particular bird that you see, and you're going to stay over there, right? And so this is how we got what we call the moieties. And we, the Onondaga, we have 8 clans. We have 4 on the bird side and we have 4 on the animal side. And on the bird side, we have the heron, which I am. We have hawk, snipe, and the odd one on this side is the deer, the white-tailed deer, and there's various explanations for that. I won't waste time with that. But then on the animal side, we have beaver, we have snapping turtle, we have bear, and we have wolf. So those are the moiety. Everyone who is Onondaga or Seneca belongs to one of those 8 clans, okay? And so the clans have a lot of different things that they do, but when we lose somebody on the bird side, the animals will take care of the needs of that family who is in grief. And so that's one of the functions of our clan system, is the animals take care of the birds. Likewise, if it was an animal that was lost, then the birds are going to jump in there and help them out. And I just recently had to take care of a funeral, and they borrowed me because the person who passed, he was a bird. He was from my clan, but there was nobody else, so I had to take take responsibility for taking care of his funeral for him. So that happens. You know, we sometimes have to do something that we're not supposed to do, in the sense that, you know, we're supposed to kind of be in grief, just like the rest of the members. But all the members of the Heron clan are my relatives. Anyway, so he reinforced this idea of what to do, and he gave us the funeral address, he gave us all the responsibilities that go along with that, and he reinforced the Thanksgiving. And so things went along pretty well for a while, and then pretty soon we start forgetting again. Start forgetting the clan system, we start to marry people that are members of our clan, and we're not supposed to do that because we're related to them. We're supposed to marry across the fire to the animals. If we're going to, for a bird, we should marry an animal. So in my case, my father was a wolf, my mother was heron, therefore I'm heron. We're a matrilineal society, and so that works pretty well. So anyways, things get confusing because, I don't want to get into it, but there are various reasons why people get confused about this sort of thing. So again, you know, as I say, we had a teacher came, try to help us out. So we went along for a little while and then began to forget again the things that we're supposed to remember. Well, there was a man, when he was born with 11 other boys at the same time. 11 other boys. But this boy, he was very, very advanced for his age, and he became the teacher to those 11. And he would teach them all the things that I've already talked about. Beyond that, he would teach them more, you know, other things. And what he brought to us was our ceremonies. He brought to us 3 ceremonies that we take care of. One we call the Great Feather Dance. Another one we call the Drum Dance. And a third one we call a Dole. It's our personal chant to our Creator to give thanks for the particular day that we are celebrating. So he brought those 3 ceremonies to our people and helped us because he reminded us of the other things we had forgotten, and then he added those ceremonies to it. And then he said to the people, the men, I've got to go away. In fact, I'm going to go across the water, and I'm going to go over there, and I'm going to teach them some of these things that they should know in order for them to have a better way of life. And so he left them, and they were kind of sad, you know, that he was leaving them, and he went away for a long time. They didn't see him. And then they had this thing where, like, all of a sudden they felt like they were being pulled to go to one place. All of them, all of the 11, they were being pulled to go to another place, and they all gathered there, and here comes the messenger that had been their teacher. He came there to them, and he said, you can't touch me, but I want to tell you about what happened, he said. And so when he was approached, he held out his hands like this, and they noticed that his hands had been pierced. Both of his hands had been pierced. Then he pulled up his shirt, and he showed him he had a wound on his chest. And so he said, over there, he said, you're lucky, he told the boys. He said, because you have believed what I told you. You listened and you believed what I told you. He said, over there, nobody believed me. They didn't believe what I told them. He said, in fact, they killed me. They killed me over there, he said, because they did not believe what I was telling them. And so now I'm back again, he said, and they noticed that under his arm, he was carrying a wooden bowl. This wooden bowl is used in one of our other ceremonies. We call it dish game. In English, we say dish game, peach stone game. It's a game that kind of teaches us the values of wrong and right, and night and day, and black and white, you know, the difference of things. You know, people with a good mind, people that don't have such a good mind. This is the natural part of the world, and you have to live with that. And so this all is embodied in this particular game. And when we played that game, and we just did, because we just acknowledged our green corn is ready, so we played this game at the green corn. And when we do, the animals play against the birds. And it's a very exciting game. Everybody's yelling their head off, trying to encourage the side that they're from to win. And we do this for the Creator. The Creator loves this, to see us play that way. And so that was the 4th ceremony that came. When he came back, he left that with us. This way of taking care of, the fourth ceremony. Now, we went along for a little while. We were taking care of our ganonyo. We were following our clan system. We were taking care of our ceremonies, and then people started forgetting again what they're supposed to be doing. And so along came another guy, and we stated that he is one of the 4 messengers who was born on earth, and he was born of a virgin mother. So it's a very interesting story that it kind of parallels stories that you may be familiar with. And when he came into the world, his mother said, "I have never been with another man. I've never been with a man." And her mother didn't believe her. Her mother was very ashamed of what had happened, couldn't understand why her daughter was pregnant. And sort of they moved away from the community during this time of her pregnancy, and they moved themselves off into another area, isolating themselves. And the grandmother was distressed about this whole thing, And the daughter continued to say, "Well, I've never been with a man. I don't know how this happened." So, in time, this man was born, and it seems that he grew very fast, grew very rapidly, and he had a particular knowledge. And one day he had to say to his mother and his grandmother, "I'm going to leave, and I have to go across this water, and I'm going to go over there, and I'm going to teach them what I've been telling to the younger people over here, my contemporaries, what I've been telling them, this message of peace, this message of power, this message of righteousness. I'm going to go over there, and I'm going to teach them to replace killing with thinking, to use your mind to resolve the differences that you have with other people, and the power of the good mind. This is the message that I'm going to teach," he said. And so he says, "So I'm going to have to depart from here and go there. And you'll know how I'm succeeding or if I'm not succeeding, because I'm going to place a feather in this tree over here. And when you see this quill moving really fast, you'll know that I'm encountering difficulty. If you see that quill fill up with blood, you know that I've never made it. It didn't work, and they didn't accept it, and this is what happened to me. But if you just see it sort of quiver there and it stays, then you'll know that they're accepting my message." So this man, we refer to him as the peacemaker. We refer to him as the peacemaker. He has a very extended message. It takes a lot. But basically where he was coming here across Lake Ontario. He was starting off in the Bay of Quinte, and he was making his way over here in a white stone canoe, we were told. That's how he got over here, paddled his way across the lake. They saw this gleaming, beautiful white image on the lake. They didn't know what it was, but as he drew closer, the people saw these fishermen that were fishing by themselves. They were Mohawk. They noticed him, and they went to see what was going on. And he told them, "I bring a new mind, and I want you to return to your town and tell them there that I'm here to spread the word of a new mind." And so he began. And he began with the Mohawk, and the Mohawk were very doubtful about his message, and so they thought they would test him by putting him on top of the tallest tree next to a big waterfall, and then they cut that tree down, and they said, "If he survives, we'll know it's a true message. And if he doesn't survive, we know there was no point in listening to him anyway." So he survived. In the morning, there was a fire coming from the other side where that waterfalls was, and they sent somebody over there, and there he was, sitting by the fire, smoke rising. And so they invited him in, and he shared the rest of the story with them, his whole message, that the white pine would be a symbol of a confederacy of 5 nations. The white pines and needles grow in clusters of 5, right? And he's again telling them, we're going to replace killing with thinking. The Creator does not want us killing one another. And so this is the message I'm giving you, the message of peace. The more of you that sees this message, the more power it will have. And if you seize that message and you take on the message of power, you're going to live a righteous life, And so he was just spreading all this message to them. Well, he had to go to each of our 5 nations individually. He then went to the Oneida, who were ready for the message. They didn't have any doubts. They needed that message. They were very good at growing corn, but they were having trouble because there had been so much killing. They were down to only 3 clans. That's all they had left, 3 clans. So then he went on from them after he was successful there. On the way there, he encountered a man we call Hale Wentham. Heowenta at the time was living like a cannibal. And so he had to correct him and teach him the right way of living and teach him to use the white-tailed deer and not be making part of his meal out of other people. And so he spread this message to him, and he took hold of that message, but it cost him a lot to be able to help the peacemaker. He lost a daughter to that process, and it was very dear to him, and it was very painful for him. But he was still trying to help the peacemaker spread the message. There was a man that lived at the place that we now call Onondaga in central New York, who was totally against the message of peace. He loved war, he loved fighting, he loved killing, he was terrible. You know, and he had these, they say he had serpents in his hair. Now, is that a metaphor or is it true? But anyway, that's what they say of him. And so he was very difficult to overcome. So they had to go around him for the time being, and they moved on to the Cayuga Nation. The Cayuga Nation, you could tell it was the Cayuga Nation because of the way they lined up their canoes along the lake. And at the same time, they're known as the people of the pipe. And there was one guy there had a great big pipe. We in Onondaga, we call him Otstungo. So Otstungo was ready for the message, and he took the message. And then they asked him to do one more thing. They said, we want you to go over here and talk to these Onondaga, the Seneca, because we were the most warlike. We were really fierce, you know. And we didn't really want to give up that fight either. We wanted to keep going, and we felt in our heart that the other four who have now kind of beginning to accept the message of peace, we could defeat them any time because we're so powerful. So we didn't need that message of peace. And so we were kind of resisting to it, you know, resisting the message. So the peacemaker had to figure out a way to convince the Onondaga ourselves how to come into the nation and come into the Confederacy, and so we could have a Confederacy of 5 nations once they got Tadadaho on board. Anyway, so what they said to them, to the Onondaga people, they said, you will be the keepers of the western door. And what we want you to do is we want you to guard that western door against all those nations that lie to the west of us, and do not let anyone in that might cause harm to us or to our Confederacy. And that will be your responsibility. So you will maintain that, that ability to defend and protect that the warriors had, but you won't be taking it out on us. You'll be keeping the other people out that might be harmful to us until we find out whether they're ready to accept the message of peace or they came for a good reason. At any rate, they accepted that idea that they were going to have that. And one of the very first ones to accept that is a man we call Skenyadayo. Skenyadayo was one of the very first ones, and he was made a chief of the Onondaga, and we still have that title until today. Keep that in mind because that message is going to come up again. At any rate, eventually they had to take, all the people in each nation. They said, take 3 men, raise them up, and let them become the ones that are going to become chiefs eventually. They're going to give them a title later, but right now just get 3 of them from each of your communities, and we're all going to come to Onondaga Lake, and there we're going to surround this man Tadadaho. The peacemaker will be in front. The woman who accepted the message of peace, we call her Jikonsa, say that earned rights for our women, and then also Heowenta. They will stand in front of him, and then behind him will be 3 from each nation there to back up what the peacemaker is saying about the message of peace, and we'll try to overcome his mind. And then if we do successfully do that, the mother of nations, Jikonsa say, will place the crown, the antlers of authority, the deer antlers on his head, a symbol that he is a chief. And so that's what they did. They managed to overcome him. And so once again, our people returned to the good mind. We took care of our clans. We remembered our Ganonyo. And now we had peace among our people. We stopped fighting with each other all the time. Stopped the bloodshed, stopped the warring, and all of that. And we went along for a little while. We were doing pretty good. And remember, all of this happened before our people from across the ocean arrived here. Okay? So we didn't have anybody here from any other place imparting these messages to us. These are our own people teaching us all of these things that I'm telling you about, forming our confederacy, teaching us these very important teachings, belief and peace. And our Confederacy is founded on the message of peace. But gradually what happened was we had more and more fur traders coming over here, more and more people coming from across the water, wanting freedom of religion, wanting various things, wanting land, wanting a place of their own, coming here and wanting to live here. Okay? And they brought along with them a variety of things that some of our people kind of took a look at them and they thought, gee, that looks pretty good. I think I'd like some of that. You know, maybe I should follow what they're saying, right? So we had people who were preachers, you know, that were kind of holding out to us things. One of the things that was brought here that we didn't have was alcohol. Alcohol was brought here. That was not a way of our life. It wasn't part of our life, and it had a terrible effect on many of our people, a very devastating effect on our people. Another thing that they brought over here that was not a part of our way of life was the Bible. We didn't have a Bible like that. You know, we had our belief, we had our way of life, we call it, our way of life, but we didn't have a Bible. That was brought here. And then there were people, they brought over the fiddle. You know, what the fiddle symbolizes is just a whole different way of, you know, entertainment and culture and music. That's not our way. That's the way that was brought here to us, right? So we had to consider whether or not is that good for us, right? And then we had, of course, people saying to us that you ought to get an education. What you ought to do is learn to talk like us. You ought to learn these things that are going to help you to understand us, right? You should be able to do that. And think about that, you know, this is going to help you. So all of this stuff was intended to help us, but some of it had a very destructive effect on our people. I have to tell you that, because it took people away from their language, our language. It took people away from our belief. It took people away from the things that are, all those teachings I mentioned beforehand, right? It began to change our people's minds. And we call it the mind changer. The mind changer was primarily done with the alcohol. And then we entered into treaties, not in a good mind, because we're using the mind changer, which was brought through the treaty making. All of this stuff happened to us in an effort to take our land, is the truth. So we had to deal with all that. So along come another messenger. And this messenger, this time we call him Handsome Lake. And that's that title I talked about before, Skenyadayo. Skenyadayo, or in our language, Kenyadayo, meaning a beautiful lake. He came with a message, and what he did was he said to us, you know, he could see the future. First of all, he saw the future that was coming, and the future that was coming included one of those. A vehicle traveling down the road, there was no horse in front of it, there was no horse behind it, it was traveling along by itself. He said a lot of people of ours are going to be attracted to that, and a lot of them are going to die in it, in an accident or something like that. He said there's going to come a time when the water is not going to be fit to drink. We won't be able to drink the water that has been our source of nourishment, because there will be things that will happen to that water and it won't be available to us. He said there'll become a time when these corn plants that we all depend upon, the corn will begin to shrink and it won't be as productive as it used to be, and we won't get the food that we once lived upon. And that time is coming, he said. So just be aware of that. He said there's a time coming when the earth will get so hot that some of the birds will have to live in a different place away from the earth, because the earth heats up, and those times are coming. He saw a lot of things coming that you and I are, if you're watching TV lately, you're hearing about it. You're hearing about these floods, you're hearing about these fierce winds, you're hearing about, many things that are impacting the world. And this was in 1799 that he saw this coming, and that he began to teach our people, right? This is what's coming in the future. And so, but then what he also did is he reminded us of the Ganonyo, he reminded us of the clan system, he reminded us that we're not supposed to be killing one another. He brought back all the things that we had originally been taught that we were starting to forget, and he reminded us of all that stuff, okay? So this is a part of our knowledge that we had, our original knowledge. I wanted to share that with you so that you understand that when people came and believed that we didn't have belief, or we didn't have any knowledge of these things, we did have knowledge of these things, and that they were a part of our way of life. And so there's a tiny handful of us now that hold on to that, still holding on to it, right? Holding on to our original traditions, holding on to our language, learning our language, maintaining our ceremonial way of life. And our ceremonial life is simply acknowledging the gifts that come from the natural world. So, like I say, we just took care of our green corn ceremony. When our corn has milk in it still, we get together and we harvest some of that and we make a soup from that. But we're just giving thanks for the fact that the corn has returned again to feed us, right? Because we depend upon it. The next one, we're going to acknowledge the harvesting of all of the plants that are growing right now. The squash, the beans, the corn, everything that's coming up right now and growing right now, maturing. We're going to give thanks for all of that. And that will be our harvest ceremony. And that's coming up pretty soon. So everything that we do in ceremonies is related to the gifts of the natural world. So one more thing I want to talk about. This quahog clam shell, and this is a lightning whelk, right? These two kinds of shell come from the North Atlantic. And a lot of them were very much concentrated around Long Island, actually. And the people living there, Algonquin-speaking people, they harvested these, and then they traded them across what we today call the Long Island Sound to people like the Pequot and some others. And those people then took these and they turned them into beads. They turned them into shell beads. Those shell beads were used by us to create wampum belts. So this is a facsimile. This is not an original wampum belt. And it's really a small version of what we call the Hayawenta belt. But it is a belt that shows the 5 nations in the center of the Tree of Peace. I talked about the white pine. We call it the Tree of Peace. And then over here on this side, we have the Onondaga and the Cayuga, and over here, the Mohawk and the Oneidas. These 5 nations united together by the message of peace. The white beads indicated that we accepted the message of peace. The purple indicates that this message of peace was accepted during a time of conflict, during a time of warfare. And so we were united by that. We obtained these beads, and eventually these beads became very, very important. And Dutch were one of the main suppliers of these beads to us. But eventually there were factories in New Jersey and in Manhattan producing these wampum beads. At first it was our people making the wampum beads. As I say, the Pequot were one example. Once we got the drill, or some kind of a metal that we could drill out this very brittle shell. This is perfect, this one here, because it has a column of white that goes down the center from which beads could be made. But remember, all of these beads, they start off as just a piece of shell that has to be made into a tube and rounded out, then drilled out through the center in order to have beads that could be assembled. So it's complex. Another example of the symbol of our 5 nations united by the message of peace. Another wampum belt design. Now, this one I want to talk about, and if I have a timekeeper out there, you probably better shut me up because you know how long I can go. Okay, so this, we call it the 2-row. And I think you can see why we call it the 2-row. It looks like 2 rows, right? And so what it is the first time that the Dutch approached our people and wanted to establish trading posts on what they then called the Mehicantuck, which later gets the name Hudson, from Henry Hudson. The Mehicantuck River, they thought maybe that river went all the way across the country and could take them to the west coast. Well, it didn't, because it runs north and south, but they didn't know that when they first came. But what they really wanted to do was they wanted to establish trading posts along that river, the Mehicantuck. And so the Mohawk, they put together this belt because they wanted to explain something to them. And what they said was this. Well, look, they said, we're traveling along the river of life going forward in time, but we're traveling in a canoe, And in our canoe, we have our Ongwe Ka. All those teachings that I talked to you about earlier, that's all in that canoe with us. Everything we need is in there. Our knowledge of the plants, of the trees, our knowledge of the animals and the birds, and our knowledge of the way of life. It's all in that canoe with us. And we're traveling forward in life. Over here is a ship, and that's you. You're in a ship, You have in your ship your religion, you have your law, you have your medicine, you have all the knowledge that you need. It's right here in your ship with you. And, you know, there's 3 beads in the center. He said, we can live in peace and friendship forever so long as we can respect the right of each to exist. And what we don't want you to do is jump out of that ship and try to steer our canoe for us. Okay? And so we want you to stay in your ship. And we're not going to get out of our canoe and try to steer your ship for you. We're going to stay in our canoe. Right? But from time to time, this is what we know, he said. Some of our people will be attracted to the shiny objects in your ship. And they'll try to jump into your ship with you and go along with you for a ways. Right? And then there'll be some people that are in your ship that'll look over at us and they'll think, gee, that looks pretty good over there. Maybe I want to get in with them. And so those hippies, they jump in the canoe with us, right? They're going to live off the land. They're going to, you know, wash less or do whatever they did. Just make it. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. I lived through that time period, so don't hold it against me. Okay. And then they said, if you can agree to this, this is going to last as long as the sun comes up every day, as long as the grass turns green at a certain time of the year, as long as water flows downhill. If you can agree to this, this is how long this agreement will last. And if you do agree to this, we're going to let you put some trading posts on the Hudson River, what became the Hudson River once Henry came up river there with his half-moon ship. So this is the first one that we really kind of extended to our European brothers and sisters when they came over here to help them understand who we are and who we were and are. And so later we had to take this to the French and do the same thing, explain it to the French, just the way I did it with the Dutch. And then we explained it to the English, and the English kind of got it, you know, because they took up our wampum diplomacy, using wampum belts as a way of recording important ideas and of conducting diplomatic agreements. Now, I'm going to talk about this one, and then I might be pretty close to wrapping up. So this one here we call, and it's a facsimile, but it kind of shows what happens after you use a belt a lot. There can be damage done to the belt. And so there are some of our belts that, you know, they don't have all the beads that they once had, and they're in need of repair. And these are the kind of things we repatriated from our museums here in the States. You know, when we did the repatriation work, there were wampum belts that had been out of our hands for 99 years. 1898. Some of them took off and they went to places like New York State Museum and other places, the National Museum, what became the National Museum of the American Indian. So I was one of those that was repatriating these things and bringing them back home. The big ones that were at Albany, that happened before I got started, but then I worked on ones that were especially in the Smithsonian and returning them to us. But what this belt says is, and I'm going to read about an eyedropper full, is that you know, the women are responsible because we have women in and we have a matrilineal society, and we have what are called clan mothers. At the head of each of our clans, there's a woman. And among the other responsibilities she has is maintaining the names that belong to that clan. She also has the responsibility of making sure our chiefs, our leaders, we call them Hodiyan Nason, act in the best interest of the people. And if they're not acting in the best interest of the people, they get 3 strikes and they can be out, you know, and be replaced by somebody who will act according to the best interest of the people. But the clan mothers have very big responsibilities, and so this says that if we did lose a guy who was a Hoyane, or a leader, a chief, if we did lose one, the women hold the title so they can always put it on another man and replace him. So we won't be without that ability to replace that leader we might lose. And so this is simply saying that these titles are held by our women and that they can be put on other men when we need. And so this is a very important one because we want to be able to have our leaders, and we want to be able to have good leaders too. That's very important. And they have to never have been guilty of murder, never be guilty of rape, never be a thief, have a family, and be conscious of the needs of the elderly as well as the very young. And you have to take those responsibilities. And you're looking to the generations that are yet unborn, because they're going to come along, they're going to need a place to live, they're going to need a way of life, they're going to need a language, they're going to need all these things. So it's up to the ones that are living right now, including me, to do the things that enable these things to be passed along to the people that are coming in the future. And so these are all the responsibilities of our leaders and of our clan mothers. And I thank you very much for your attention today. I wound up going through a lot of stuff in a very quick way. Maybe I can take 1 or 2 questions from you if you have them. Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
Are there any ceremonial services for people like us who are attached?
No. So our way of life, it takes place in our community for our people. Remember about the 2-row? You know, so we believe that you are given your instructions and that your instructions are for you, and that's the way you will carry out your giving thanks to your Creator and you're acknowledging your Creator. Just like we have a way of life that we will take care of and acknowledge our Creator. Your way of embracing what we do is coming here today and listening to what I'm telling, because I'm sharing with you this kind of knowledge that you don't get every day and you can't pick up a book and find, right? All that first part I told you is not in a book. Yes, sir.
As of course, you talked about the different ways of learning about the past. Does the Indian nation have a written tradition at all?
Yeah, you know, so we have this thing we call American Studies, for example, at the University of Buffalo. And one of the people who founded that American Studies was a cousin of mine by the name of John Mohawk. And John Mohawk published a number of books thinking, well, he and another one. There's a man named Arthur Parker previous to John who wrote something called Thinking Indian. You know, and it was like, think about these things, but put your lens on that helps you to understand it from our point of view, from our perspective. And John Mohawk also, you know, he did, among other things, he did an adapted version of the Iroquois creation story. He did another one, Utopian Legacies. He did another one called, I can't think of the name of it right this second. But yes, so we have authors who have published a lot of information, a lot of teachings, and those help us to understand too. And so one of the ways as I was beginning my work at Ganondagan was I went to the American Studies program because of John and Orrin Lyons in order to kind of be focused on the things that I would have to know in order to tell the story of Ganondagan, but also because I had to work with the chiefs, I had to work with the clan mothers, I had to work with the faith keepers, I had to work with all those people who have responsibilities for maintaining our way of life. And so for me to be able to do that, I have to learn myself. And now I have to pass it along to those that are coming after me so they can continue to run Ganondagan, right? So, so that's what I had to do. At any rate, yes, we do have some of these things that, you know, are written down. We have a gift shop at Ganondagan. If you visit there, the gift shop, we have publications that we have carefully selected because we think they have good information in them, and we like to be able to have people get those. I see the dancers lining up behind me, and I'm the only one between you and their dancing, so I'm going to get out of the way and thank you for this day. Dane Hudia.
We're the Allegheny River Seneca dancers, and we're here to share a little bit of what we call Yoinza Ge Ka Ha De Garnage. You're welcome to, if you want to move your chairs to the side, that's fine. I'm here with members of my family to demonstrate some of these dances, and we have a part in our program where we're going to give you the opportunity to try some of these easy dances. And since we just been sitting here for a while, we drove about 2 hours to get here today. And you know how it is when you get up and you have a song stuck in your head. And well, that's how it is for me, like every day. But anyways, when I get the song stuck in my head, it doesn't leave me alone until I sing it. So here goes. I'm gonna sing a warm-up song. And it's not a Seneca song. This song is what's called a jingle dress sidestep song. And just goes to show that There's a lot of songs out there. But again, I'm going to sing this and then we're going to get started. So here we go. Give me a hand, people. Now, as Native people, we have dances and songs for a lot of different occasions. And as Pete was talking a little bit ago about the teachings that we have, some of the teachings that have been brought to us or that we have learned from messengers include song and dance. And as Native people, we're sensitive to this idea that some songs can have great healing power. So we have certain songs that we use to give honor and thanks to Songwajin Okdao, the creator. Those are songs and dances like he was talking about with those 4 major ceremonies: the great feather dance, the drum dance, and the personal chant that we still have. And while at the Cattaraugus Reservation, they had that green corn ceremony last week. Where we come from in Ohio country, we're getting ready to have that ceremony this upcoming week. So it starts on Monday for us. But again, those very sacred songs and dances that we have, we can't do for you. Those are the songs that we do for those ceremonial times only. And we pass it on to our young people. But this green corn that's coming up is a 4-day-long ceremony, 5 days long in Ohio territory. And in the evenings, when we have, it brings people from all over back home. And when they come home for this celebration, usually during the evenings, we have social gatherings, referred to as socials, where we do these dances that we're going to share, Yoinza Geika. There are social dances, dances of the earth. And while these aren't healing dances, they still tell our history. And they still include great things and great teachings about our history and the way we should be, the way we should live. So this first dance that we're going to do, we always do this as the first dance at a social gathering. The history of it is awesome. In our language, we call it Gatdashod, means standing quiver dance. Long ago, at places like Ganandagan, a leader would go in the center of the village and he would give a holler. And he would call his warriors. He would say, "Hey-yo!" And his warriors would reply by making this sound. Whee! And one by one, he would start first and stand up his quiver of arrows in the center of the village. And he's calling his guys out there. The next guy would come, put his quivers there. The next guy, and so on. And they would join and they would do this marching type dance. Some refer to it as a stomp dance. And they would do this Gatdashod. And with this call and recall type dance. No instrument, just our stomping feet. There's interesting stories in our history of our people attacking towns, singing Gatdashod as they're attacking, as they're coming in. So wow, talk about living history, right? You know, we still have these songs and these this special dance. So it may seem kind of simple to you, but that's because it's old school. So here we go, got the show. Hey-yo! Yo-ho! Hey! Yo-ho! Hey! Yo-ho! Hey! Yo-ho! Hey! Yo-ho! Hey! Yo-ho! Hey! Ahem! 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 A lot of people will ask us, what were you saying when you were singing that? And the majority of these social dance songs are really old chants or vocables. But that last song that I sang, what it says is it says that we're moving and we're going to a different place. That as we're going to this place, we're in canoes. And as we're paddling our canoe, we're making a great noise. So you can see that it's talking about the history of us traveling by canoe from place to place. Now, sometimes our men would have to travel for war. And if it was a war party, perhaps before they went to battle, they would do this next dance that we're going to show you. And again, this is the for real Seneca war dance that we have. And we're going to have these guys demonstrate it. Seneca war dance. We're going to ask Jacob to come up. We're going to talk a little bit about the regalia that the guys have on. This is a type of regalia that we wear for ceremonies in our longhouses back home. And one of the things you notice right away about us is that we have these feathered hats on. Now these feathered hats are a great symbol for our people. You notice that most of us have these one feathers standing straight up, signifying that we are members of the Onondaga people. I mean, I'll say that word, Onondaga. Meaning people, of course, of the Great Hill, talking about the Great Hills here on the banks of Canandaigua. So this is really our ancestral homeland, where we come from and where the title and name of our people comes from. And with this one feather standing straight up, you can tell even from a distance that we are Onondaga males. Now, if you notice the little guy here, he doesn't have any large feathers on his gustoet, and he has the part that that will hold a feather, but he left it home. So again, that's how it goes sometimes. But anyways, so if we had dancers from one of the other different tribes, so for instance, a person of the Ganyangeona people or the Flint Nation would have 3 feathers standing straight up, and they're referred to in English as Mohawks. If we had a guy that belonged to the Oneida Nation, Otneotka, Standing Stone people, he would have 2 up and 1 slanting to the back. Onondaga, Onondagas on the hill, they have 1 up and 1 down on their Gustoa. So when you see those feathers worn that way, you can tell what nation they come from. The Gayungwano people, the people of the swampy land, have 1 feather that kind of slants to the back instead of standing straight up. Now we had a tribe join us and live in our Confederacy of Peace, Tuskilwant, or the Tuscarora Nation. They have no large feathers on their Gustoa. But this is a big part of our identity, and you can see that, again, Pete talked earlier about the clan system. You can see what clan some of our dancers are by the way the medallions they have on and the way they dress. We can see the little guy here is a member of the Turtle Clan. So with that, we're going to have our ladies come out, and we're going to have them do a dance that honors all of our women. This in our language is called Askande Gaina Saison. This is the women's dance. It honors our ladies as well as Itino Ayoenzere, our Mother the Earth. Whenever our ladies come back out there, we're going to talk a little bit about the regalia that our ladies have on. This is a type of skirt and leggings set. See, one of them has a beaded collar on that is worn by our ladies for our ceremonies back home. And again, you can see the Turtle Clan symbol. It's very common for us to use these line and floral beadwork designs in our clothing. Of course, prior to having cloth and glass beads, our clothes would have been made primarily out of deer skin with moose hair or porcupine quill embroidery. So once cloth and glass beads became available, we adapted to that almost overnight. And again, it's a lot easier material to work with. And again, I'd like to point out that Courtney right here with the white dress on is almost completely done with her outfit. She's doing her own beadwork, her own regalia. Of course, we have to make our own stuff, or somebody has to make it for us, but give her another hand. And I got to point out that our youngest dancer here, my daughter, Raina Kraus, she's 1.5 years, and like all dancers that start off, you see, they ask us, how soon do we start? And pretty much as soon as we can walk, we dress them up, we take them to festivals and ceremonies and so forth, and we never try to force them to dance, but when they show interest in it, we encourage them big time. And of course, at this age, sometimes they dance and sometimes they don't. So we take what we get with those guys. But anyways, we're going to bring out all of our dancers this time. We're gonna have him do a dance that, in our language, is called Genzaino. And being this close to the lake, this is a good one. This is the fish dance. Give him a hand! Fish dance. Now, I feel pretty lucky as a dad and as a grandpa because all my kids and all my grandkids are dancers and singers. And when I have my grandson come out, and he's getting ready to turn 9 years old. And he's turning 9 years old in 2 days. And when we were here almost 5 years ago now, it was 5 years ago, wasn't it? Wasn't he like 4, or was he? He was gonna be. He was 4 years old when he learned how to do hoop dance. He's gonna do that a little bit later on here. You want to do it now? Yeah, let's do it now. And he learned how to do this dance. He started doing this dance about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when he was just 4. And what's nice about it, about the history of it, is the first place that he ever did hoop dance was here. So he's going to give us his birthday version of the hoop dance. And when he does this dance, you'll see him make different formations that represent things from nature. And hoop dancers use the hoops to kind of tell a story. And as they go through the hoops, it's said that the medicine version, the Hopi version of the hoop dance really started as a healing dance. And that each time the dancer would go through the hoops, it could extend a person's life. And this guy is going to give us his version of hoop dance at almost 9. All right? Here we go. When you see him make formations, give him applause. He'll dance harder. Here we go. And we're going to do a dance around this whole tent here. And this dance that we're going to do puts aside this idea of war, and we'd like to invite you to get right in the line with our dancers. It's a very easy step. This is what we call the friendship dance. So, you know, we invite you to come up and give it a try. It's nothing like the hoop dance that you just saw. It's pretty easy, so come on up and give it a try. Here we go, friendship dance.
Are you gonna go?
Thank you very much. Friendship dance. Okay, next up. Since we have a tradition in our family that when somebody has a birthday during one of our performances or really close to a performance, they get a solo. And he did hoop dance a little earlier, but what we're going to do is we're going to have him come out and we're going to have him do a little solo. And the solo that he's going to get is going to be a medley of songs. Now, what he has to do is, no matter what I sing, he has to do the correct dance. So it's kind of like a test on his birthday. All right? So if he does the correct dance, then I'll switch to the next song. Okay? So here we go. We're going to test him out. Give all our corn dancers a big round of applause. Now those corn dance songs I learned from my great grandfather. So I was lucky that I grew up at a time when my great grandfather was around. And he used to travel with our dance group as well when we did performances. And at that time, we had 5 generations of my family all dancing together. So at this time, I'm doing pretty good. I got 3 right here, right now, so nothing wrong with that. But again, we have this great tradition of passing these songs and dances from generation to generation. And you can bet that when Onondaga people lived on Bear Hill and lived on the banks and in these hills, that they sang corn dance the same way we do today. And what's awesome about this is that we have this connection with our past and with our history, and it's just the way that we teach our young people these teachings about how we should interact with the world around us. And I have a short story, kind of a funny story, I guess, but we made a big video for the City of Salamanca School District during the pandemic. So we were asked to videotape Seneca social songs and dances so that kids could watch it and learn about it at home. So we thought, all right, we did that. We made a big video, and one of the dances that we did in the video was this corn dance. So the City of Salamanca School District put it on their YouTube page, and they sent me an email saying that they were upset because they were asking if I stole the songs of corn dance from somebody else. And I said, no. I said, those songs have been passed down and they're part of our social dancing, they're part of our tradition. And they said, oh, well, this company called The Orchard Music is claiming they own the rights to Seneca corn dance. And I said, oh, really? So that was pretty interesting to me. And I got on their website and looked it up. Sure enough, there was a page on there where I could respond to any quarrels that people have with their copyright, hassles. So I got on that little page and I typed this message back to them. I said, I would like to know who you say wrote corn dance, because I want to know who's infringing on our rights, because those songs and that dance is a part of our history, has been passed down for generations, and belongs to the people. So you tell me who's infringing on our rights, and we'll send our Seneca Nation corporate lawyers after them. So, needless to say, I didn't get a reply to my email. They own corn dance. Really, no. So, but anyways, you never know. It just goes to show. We're living in this age of technology and so forth, and it's just, I guess everybody's got to watch their back. Watch out for your corn dance, people. It's just funny. But we're gonna bring our guys out, and we're gonna have them demonstrate a contest dance. Now, in Salamanca, there's a city on our reservation called Salamanca, New York. And the non-native residents lease the city parcels of land in the city from the Seneca Nation. And at our home, we have a big contest powwow every third weekend in July. So the third weekend in July this year, Salamanca powwow was back after a 2-year break during the pandemic. And we were pretty nervous. We wondered if there was going to be people coming to the powwow, because usually it's a big deal. Well, this year we had 464 dancers come from all over the United States and Canada to compete at our powwow. And one of the dances that they did is this contest dance that you're going to see. Now, this dance is what is derived from the war dance style of dancing, and it is called the smoke dance. The object is, no matter how fast the beat goes, the dancers have to keep up with it. They've got to stop on a dime on the last beat of the song. So we're gonna bring out Jacob and Jysep. We're gonna have these guys show their version of Seneca smoke dance. Not bad. Now, it used to be that only guys got to do that dance. And around the turn of the century, our Iroquois women said, hey, wait a minute. We can dance fast and even better than guys. And now there's women's smoke dance contests held all across Indian country at our big powwows. We're going to have our ladies come out and demonstrate their version of smoke dance. So here we go, ladies smoke dance. Hey, only stands to reason that if there's men and women's smoke dance, we also have a category called boys smoke dance. So we're going to have Leo come out and do his birthday smoke dance. Here we go. Happy birthday, boy. All right, we're going to have our guys come out. We'd like to introduce our group to you. Again, we are the Allegheny River Seneca Dancers. We come from the Allegheny Indian Reservation. And we are all Seneca people from that territory. Going to start by introducing on the end. Let's hear it for my grandson, Dylan Harris. Next is my grandson, Liam Dowdy. Next is Jacob Dowdy. We're going to bring the ladies out now. Okay, we're going to introduce over here on this end in the pink dress. Let's hear it for my honey, Lynn George. Next is my daughter, Courtney Krause. And over there, the boss of the group sitting on the chair is my daughter, Raina Krause. And my name is Bill Krause Sr. Give me a hand. Well, we got time for one more. And, you know, we've had you guys try some pretty easy dances. Now we're going to step it up a little bit. And we're going to bring them out to do a dance that's called Ganistong Gay. This one starts off medium fast and ends up really fast. And if anybody would like to join us, feel free to come up. I don't know if you want to just do a long circle here. It's up to you. I don't know. Or you're going to get a big crew. I don't know. But we invite you to come on up and give it a try. Here we go. Stick dance this time. That's all there is to it. Come on up. pretty good. Well, we certainly hope you enjoyed our dancing as much as we enjoyed dancing for you and with you. And our dancers will be here for a little while. If you'd like to have a photograph with the dancers, well, like I said, we'll be here for a little bit. And we're going to be going tonight to the Bear Hill bonfire. And we'll probably be singing like Friendship Dance and some round dance up there. These guys will probably do a little bit of smoke dance as well by the bonfire, I mean, you know. But anyways, we'd like to thank Win Harper and your group, the Historical Society, for bringing us here once again. And there are a few places that we're able to go, Ganondagan being one of them, and where we're able to feel a real connection and able to reconnect with our history by the location that we're at. And we still view this as a sacred area for our people, and we're very honored to be asked once again to come and be part of your festivities here. So with that, we'd like to teach you all a Seneca word. Let me all say Escongei. Now when we depart company, we never say goodbye. Instead we say Escongei. Let me hear it again. What it means is, we'll see you all again. Thank you very much.